Welcome to the program today, and we have Kesha Rogers, the District 22 Democratic candidate for the LaRouche Party, for, again, against the options of what we call Obamni. And we need to put in candidates that believe in constitutional reform, that believe not in austerity fascism, but real solutions, which the very first one is to remove Obama and set up Glass-Steagall. The idea of having to do an audit of the Fed is irrelevant because the Fed's always been auditable. We've had our experts on talking about CAFR 1 and the fact that, if you go to CAFR1.com, you can actually pull up all the information about the audit of the Fed. The real issue is Glass-Steagall, which under the Clinton administration, they removed this wall or firewall between the speculative banking in the derivatives market and getting literally into the pockets of government and saddling debt on the nations to destroy the nation states. It's corroding Europe. It's about to destroy America. We're literally about to go to war in Israel with 22 battalions called up and 22 battalions on the Syrian and Egyptian border. We have the Russians with a massive armaments in Georgia and on the Iranian border, and stating that they will not tolerate the buildup of anti-missile systems in the former CIS nations, literally on the doorstep of Russia. This is a form of brinkmanship and stupidity, which is of a galactic level that literally could be an extinction level event if we don't deal with the extinction level event of Fukushima, which is going to have hydrovolcanic and nuclear dirty bomb explosions, probably more than 2 kilotons, enough to put it into orbit and circulate the planet, as well as destroy 20 million acres of Japan. Now they're talking about evacuating 40 million people if it blows. We don't have any solutions being presented by any of the candidates. We have lots of high platitudes, but no one's talking about putting in Glass-Steagall, which is one of the very first steps after the Obamanectomy, the removal of Obama from power by impeachment. And then we need to have real alternatives in both the Republican and Democratic parties so we can get back to proper politics where the representatives represent the national interests of the people instead of international bankers and globalists. And that's what we have with both, I call Obamni, which is Obama, and Obama Light in Romney. So, Kesha, let's roll. Tell us what's going on. We got the Showdown Has Begun as the first article we're going to touch on. We have so many others with Russian leaders warn a preemptive attack on the ABMs, NATO encircling targets in Russia, and, of course, the setback in the bailout in Europe that's leading to the fall down of the ninth government with Sarkozy falling to Hollande, and the certainty that the Greeks are not going to get their austerity package together. They can't piece together an alliance. We're literally facing, probably by the summer, a meltdown in Europe, a very possible air attack by Israel against Iran, and a staunch response by Russia and China, which could trigger off a thermonuclear exchange. And people don't realize how dangerous this is. Far more dangerous than the Cuban Missile Crisis, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think what you just stated was the clear strategic picture on what we're facing. We are looking right now at the end of a system. The financial system of the Eurozone, of Wall Street in London is bankrupt, of the imperial faction of the British Empire, the policy toward what we're seeing right now, elimination of sovereign nation states on the planet. This system is bankrupt, and everyone knows it. Right now in Europe, you have chaos erupting from the activity that we're seeing coming from this banking interest that's scrambling to continue their bailout policy while they're looking for close to another $9 trillion in bailouts to come from murderous policies against the population. What we're seeing is a revolt against that in the nations of Europe. Just as an example of what you just said, the French presidential elections were an example of that. As we were a very clear entity in shaping that election with our campaign with Jacques Cheminade as a presidential candidate, Jacques Cheminade made it clear that the austerity policies, the bailout policies against the people had to be stopped, and we had to go with the policy toward a worldwide Glass-Steagall policy to be implemented in France. Now, even there, you had this guy Hollande who was elected, who beat Sarkozy. That's just one example. In other places, you're also seeing the same thing. The bailout and austerity candidates and parties throughout Europe, whether it's in France or in Greece or Ireland or anywhere else, is actually being ousted and people who are representing the anti-bailout, anti-austerity, anti-murderous policies against the people are actually being put into these places. So I would characterize that as you're seeing the development of an American-style revolution happening throughout Europe. And now this should send a clear signal to the American people. Where are they in the course of this American-style revolution that is erupting against this policy of austerity to loot the populations?
Yeah, exactly. We don't have solutions. We want to go through the different candidates. None of the candidates that stood for office, including Santorum and even Ron Paul's idea is that austerity and balancing the books will fix it. You can't balance the books in the current situation. You need to have credit to rebuild infrastructure and bring back business. You cannot stop spending, but you can get rid of the debt, literally write it off, that should never be paid. 90% of the debt or plus was created literally saddling the nations to destroy the nation states because the banks want to take over everything. That's why the comments by Cameron yesterday, literally, and of course from a distance it's very easy for him to say that we want a single euro and we want a single government. What they're really talking about is a federated Europe where the power of the individual nations is destroyed, the people are bankrupt and starving, and then it's taken over by a super state, which is not really a state government. It's administrative banking that will rule Europe, and again, using Europe as a proxy, do the same to America. And the same has, of course, always been happening in China with the so-called Chinese billionaire oligarchs, the same in Russia. So the globalists want this kind of a system. They do not want to have a middle class. They do not want to have people with dispensable wealth and power to move or to have their own political desires or direct government. They want to make sure they partition science so that it's no longer a public space program. So the space program is literally dissected away for the elite and corporate business and the military, and the people are kept in the dark about what's really available in terms of technology. It's very, very evil, and it's a crossroads for not only America, but the whole world.
That's right. And I will reiterate, as we've made clear numerous times on the show here, that what our national slate, my campaign for Congress here in Texas, and the national slate of LaRouche candidates represents is the only alternative and the only solution toward a real recovery for the nation and for nation states throughout the planet. And that solution is we are not going to do anything unless we take that first step to wiping out these speculative gambling bailouts with the return to Glass-Steagall banking reorganization. It has to happen now. We have no more time to lose on this. Once we do that, that's only a first step.
Then we can do. Let's talk about some of the other steps. One of the steps is every state should have a bank. Number two, there should be a setup in such a way that we don't have the youth saddled with massive debt. They could never own a home, never get debt-free, and become literally, in a sense, debtor's prison, if you want to call it financially. We need to have a system set up so that anybody of talent can get an education. And basically, I'm not talking about socialism. I'm talking about the idea that it just makes sense that if you have a population that's uneducated or can't get one, or has an irrelevant education to the technology needed, like science and technology, you're going to lag behind nations where in Beijing they graduate more engineers, the entire nation of America, in PhDs and engineers just from the city of Beijing, not let alone Shenzhen or Shandong or any other major Chinese city. So our policies are of no intellectual infrastructure or physical infrastructure or rebuilding the 50,000 factories exported overseas. America, no matter what we do to rearrange the books, is doomed unless we have a different policy, which LaRouche puts forward as the only solution. Back in a moment. Kesha, I'd like you to lay this all out. We have, again, the title of all these articles we're talking about is the showdown started. We have the dance of the so-called nomination of the GOP. which is a circus, and the circus is going to go on right through to August. We know that none of the parties and none of the candidates are actually putting forward Glass-Steagall, which needed to take the Marcy Kaptur bill. There was two bills out there to actually put this forward, because this would have immediately killed Obama's leadership. It would immediately kill Wall Street and the British control through the leveraged debt of people like George Soros, that actually is the banker behind, I call him George Soros Geppetto, behind Obama-Nocchio. We have the war machine is actually geared up to be completely just another arm of the bank. So this attempted war attack against Iran, which makes no strategic or geopolitical sense or financial sense, other than to make the bankers and the oil barons richer, is literally going to cause a lot of death and destruction, and it could easily get out of control. And both Russia and China have stated they will not tolerate this. And we don't take them seriously. We think that we can just be a bully for the bankers and have no destruction of our cities with thermonuclear weapons, no release of biological weapons, no major terrorism, not just self-inflicted wounds like 9/11 or Oklahoma City, but I mean real bad biological and chemical terrorism. We don't have any common sense when we see the austerity fascism ripping apart the Greeks, so that retired Greek citizens are killing themselves right in front of the parliament buildings because they don't want to starve to death eating garbage out of garbage containers. We have a system where Obama puts Obamacare that's so unconstitutional, it literally puts everybody 75 years and older in 2013, yes, a year and a half away, to literally go to a ethics panel where the austerity fascism decides if they get dialysis or a clipped artery in their head or a stent or cabbage. This is an obscenity at the highest level rather than controlling costs and improving innovation. We have a monster in the White House that believes austerity, and we see it on the other side with Ron Paul. Austerity in a balanced book doesn't make a healthy population, a healthy industry, or give you a job. It doesn't. What does happen is a generation of credit. When I have a business, I need to have a business plan where I can get enough money and credit to start my plan, get my factory going, get my employees. My business plan is designed, when it's properly run and managed, to actually generate the income to cover not only my debt, but to increase not only the employment of other people, but to produce real production, real products, real intellectual products, real physical products, to improve the infrastructure of the nation. The idea of a balanced book does not do that. And the problem is that this is a kind of philosophy that comes from the nobles of Austria 200 years ago. It does not come from the mind of a 21st century politician who should be leading this nation.
And what you're discussing right now is two opposing views of the nature of man and what our nation was founded on, because the policies, anyone who defends a policy of, as you said, the Austrian school, or going back to
von Mises economic austerity for the moguls.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what Andrew Jackson represented, this was anti-constitutional.
Right.
It went
Jacksonian
against
destruction. Yeah.
Right. Jackson did the same thing that Obama's doing right now. He said we can usurp the Constitution and use unitary executive powers. He basically said, I don't have to reinstate the Second National Bank, although it was already defined constitutional, because I don't want it. So you put it on my desk, I'm going to strike it down.
Right, because he was working for the bankers.
What are you striking down? You're striking down progress for the future. You're striking down the commitment to development, to scientific progress, industrial progress, because the Second National Bank was what allowed us to defeat the British Empire in the American Revolution. It allowed us to defeat the British Empire by its use principally under President Lincoln in against the Confederates, and by the use of the greenback in the time of war. So all of these things, what people are being duped by is the population is being trained to be herded cattle and subjects of a British Empire, instead of understanding what the difference is between a British Empire and being subjects of that empire, and what it means to be citizens of a republic.
Right. They have a different banking structure that allows the nobles to control and own everything, and the proletariat, or the minions, basically own nothing. Now, here's my idea. They should have a bank in every state and a federal bank that does not loan to foreign corporations or foreign governments like Obama promised on December 25th, arrived a day late for Christmas, and promised $1.1 trillion to the European Central Bank. And by the way, that credit didn't go on to the people or to really do anything to build up the infrastructure of Europe or improve its productivity. No, what it did is it paid off more bankers so they could speculate on commodities and drive the price of food so high that people in Egypt and Tunisia and Libya are starving even though they have the capacity to create their own food. The same way in Egypt, the globalists forced them not to even grow crops, to have a full range of crops on their very fertile land. They told them you have to grow crops to be able to sell in the international marketplace to Europe and elsewhere, so they don't have food for their people. That's why they're one of the largest buyers of wheat when they could grow all their own wheat. We have an obscene situation going on here where the bankers literally rule, and it doesn't matter how many body count we have or how many destroyed nations or how much nuclear war we have. The bankers want it all. They don't want some of it. They want it all now.
That's why we have to go back to Hamilton-style nationalized banking that protects and defends the people and the future of the nation. Federal Reserve, privatized banking, all of these things are against what our Constitution represents, but they're against the progress of human creative and productive output. I mean, we're talking about what's going on with the loss of infrastructure, the loss of jobs. We've seen a collapse of the system for the past 40 years. Why is that done? Because people have accepted it. People said, well, money, monetarism, is the only thing that matters. So you accept slave labor, you accept free trade, you accept these insane policies, but you don't actually organize your nation and your society around real wealth, which is created by the contributions of the creative and productive powers of your citizens. So
exactly. We should never have, we should have, go back to the Bretton Woods, which is a policy of bilateral from America to other nations, locking on fixed exchange rates so they don't fluctuate all over the place. We do not need a gold standard. We need a standard that's very similar to the finance minister that raised Germany after the First World War into becoming a superpower, which is based on the intellectual and physical property, was based on the hour of labor of a German citizen. I believe if we took the balance book of what I call ebooks, eBay, the idea of e-bucks, we would literally take every capacity that people could produce, whether it's fixing teeth naturally, to laying asphalt, to building bridges, to mowing lawns, to babysitting, to doing heart surgery, and if we had standards of exchange, and we would put that on the balance sheet, we have enough credit to set up a bank across America with all our oil resources and our energy needs and our intellectual property and our hidden patents. America is so wealthy, it's like a man starving to death, crying for a crust of bread when he's sitting on a keg of gold. It's ridiculous.
That's right. That's right.
It's ridiculous. It's so obscene that we have the situation here in California, which is bigger than most nations, the 8th largest economy. We do not have a state bank in California. Why? Is this crazy when we have a state that says they're going to go bankrupt and they're talking about cutting services to the poor and indigent? And austerity fascism, cutting the budget on the poor, to displace the indigent, and they're now increasingly using politicking to try to grasp the votes so we can move forward what I call the slave state, the total dependency on government on the one hand, or on austerity fascism to balance it on the other hand. Both are evil. Back in a moment. Welcome back to the Nutrimedical Report, and after my little rant, we're going to hear more from Kesha. Kesha, we've got lots of topics to cover here in the next two segments. If you can hear desperation in my voice, people need to get their nutraceuticals right now. We were talking last night. I talked on rents about how bad this is. There's 3 major crises I see happening that could literally bring the house down this year in 2012. The first one that I think is virtual guarantee is in the next few months we're going to see the meltdown of Europe. The second is Israel is on again, off again, trying to start an air attack, and it now seems like it's on. And I really believe that because of the instability of what's going on and the unlikelihood of re-election of Netanyahu and Lieberman, they're going to try to do an air attack with the cooperation of Obama. Probably want to do it close enough to the election it won't have a negative effect, but it'll drive the price of oil and cause a worldwide, not recession, but the word D for depression. And the third thing is we're going to have the Fukushima Daiichi plant cause a dirty bomb of the largest order ever in history. And we are still ignoring the disaster of Macondo, where oil is still seeping from the Gulf of Mexico. The life forms now down there. We have crayfish without eyes. We have dolphins without eyes and fins. We have all kinds of deformities happening. And the people are being affected, and they're all trying to ignore it. Come on down. Tourism is great. Everything, the beaches are clean, when they're pulling up radioactive tar balls and grinding it into the sand of the beaches and telling you it's fine to go there. It's not. It's not fine. And I talked to my doctors in the Academy of Environmental Medicine, and we get everything from persecution to from our so-called colleagues who don't know squat, don't know anything about radiotoxicology or environmental issues. And the fact is, these three big issues are almost certainly going to crash the world against the wall. And we need to have, on top of that, in the next couple of years, we're heading into an ice age, which is going to change the zones for growing food. We have redistribution of water issues where we need to start putting in things like NAWAPA. And we need to get away from what I call the carbon age. And it's not because we lack lots of oil, because there's tons of abiotic oil. It's because we have peak oxygen. If we continue to use industry that consume oxygen, the oxygen level for us and for our internal combustion engines is going to start dropping worldwide to a level that will not sustain cognitive thinking and frontal lobe activity in the population. Now, people say, you're just extreme, Dr. Deagle. No, I'm informed. I've been one of the first people in over 40 years ago that was a member of Greenpeace doing environmental oceanography before I went into medicine in 73, and I can tell you there's a lot of false environmentalists here, fools that are run by the banks that want to grind us into the dust and get rid of most of the population. And austerity fascism, whether it's taught by people like Ron Paul or the other side where we get the sneakiness of what I call Flip Hananiah Romney, we have on no alternatives presented to us by the global bankers, and both of these monsters are in the back pocket of Bain Capital, the Mossad, and the evil elements of the worst bankers that ever walked the face of the earth, from the ancient Sumerians to the Egyptians to long before to the ancient Atlanteans. We're dealing with the worst time in history for American tyranny, and with the National Defense Authorization Act, apologized into by Mr. Obama, we have a situation now where we have a prescient and pre-dictatorial leader. All he needs is the right crisis, and we'll have the rise of the Fourth Reich.
Green environmentalism is a policy of fascism. It's a policy of the elimination of billions of people on the planet. And I can tell you that it's been made very clear, the intentions in the recent days. Everything that you've laid out is an intention of the British Empire to eliminate billions of people from the planet. And it's no coincidence that just 2 days ago you had the release of the new 40-year anniversary Club of Rome report. This is the Club of Rome connected with Prince Philip, the World Wildlife Fund, husband of the Queen of England, Queen Elizabeth.
Wonderful guy.
Oh, yeah, right. Who has already stated his intention.
By the way, he's already put in his application with Satan to become a pandemic virus. You know that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. By the way, I think he's at the front of the line. He's actually, spiritually, he's already there waiting to be incarnated as a worldwide pandemic virus. That's actually his wishes, as stated publicly more than once.
Mm-hmm. And that's what the enemy of humanity is. That's what we have to stop right now. When Paul Ehrlich and these guys with the Club of Rome report came out and said there's going to be mass starvation unless there's a massive elimination of people from the planet, this is what these reports are saying right now. But it goes along with the fact that of the push for pushing the trigger toward thermonuclear war against Russia and China. It goes along with the fact that we're looting the sovereignty of nation states, and you're about to see, as you just said, a collapse of the whole system. It's coming down now. Where nations are no longer going to be able to feed their population. We're already seeing this. We're already seeing the inability to feed the population, the inability to have adequate water supply. This is why the North American water and power lines becomes such extremely important for the direction of where civilization is going to go. But
well, we know we know the zone of growth of the Gobi Desert in China. Most people don't realize that there's a massive famine occurring in China right now. The worst famine on earth is in China, and people don't know that. They don't know the Gobi Desert's expanding at an enormous pace, and we're heading into an ice age where the Chinese are trying to buy up land all over the planet because they're going to starve to death long before this banking crisis has even reached its peak. And the problem is that people aren't planning for this. They're not planning out for water distribution that can geoengineer and change the climate of the planet and increase the food zones. And we need to literally preserve the ecology so animals and plants and trees and the little species can survive. We're literally the stewards of this planet. We're not supposed to say, oh, don't change the deserts. Don't bring down water to the southwest United States. Don't care about the people of LA or the deserts. You might disturb some little frog or something. No. There are going to be desert areas that will be preserved, but without NAWAPA, much of humanity, without redistribution of water and energy in the food zones, much of humanity will die as we enter this ice age. And all the other disasters we've done from stupid technology like old nuclear technology and the fact that we've clinged to old technology that was outmoded, like, the current internal combustion engine when we could be using much more efficient technologies. It's all been hidden on purpose to make sure that they have a modus and an excuse for the chaos to create a reason to get rid of most of us.
Yeah, and that has to be what the American people and stand up to fight against. That should be the discussion of any of the presidential elections. What is the direction that we're going to take this nation? What's the policy for survival of the human species? Because right now, the shutdown to our scientific capabilities, the shutdown of NASA, the shutdown of our satellite capabilities, does not allow ourselves to be prepared from the threatened collapse crisis against the population in terms of any type of galactic crisis, the severe weather threats, even what we're seeing right now in terms of threats of asteroids hitting the surface of the Earth. What does this mean for the nation? What does this mean for the direction of mankind?
And by the way, the danger of those strikes is 30 times higher because we started 15 years ago a passage through the galactic plane called the Dark Rift. That is going to continue for another 15 years at high danger, 30 times higher than the 1 in 22,000 chance of a strike large enough to take out a large chunk of a major city like Paris or New York City. This is so dangerous, and people don't understand it. Near-Earth objects, we have a silent project in space, but it needs to become more public and international because without enough eyes in space, without enough technology, we could be struck with an asteroid that could trigger off the release of methane hydrates in the ocean. In fact, they think what happened when the asteroid struck down in the Yucatan Peninsula, they killed the dinosaurs during this passage through the galactic plane 62 million years ago, and that's how often it happens, by the way, that what happened was a methane hydrate release that killed the dinosaurs because the oxygen dropped from 40% in 2 atmospheres pressure down to 5%. And that was caused by the methane hydrate. So if we aren't prepared to deflect these near-Earth objects, we could have an extinction level event happen because we're converging cycles, 62 million year passage through the galactic plane, 105,000 Milankovitch cycle causing ice ages, major ice ages, the 11,500 year precession of the equinox cycle, and the 360 year Maunder, M-A-U-N-D-E-R cycle, all of them causing major shifts that have previously caused the movement of civilizations, causing the wars of the Middle Ages, right back to the fall of every empire in recorded history, and we're not doing a damn thing about it, and we're not dealing internationally with it. We're just waiting, and the globalists want this to happen because they want an excuse to get rid of most of Earth's population.
But there are solutions, and we have those solutions, so we should talk about those on the next
Exactly. Most definitely. Solutions. Back in a moment. Okay, and we're back. Kesha, tell us more about what's going on and more about these issues.
Well, the first thing I want to tell people about is, look, there is a threefold solution. That solution we've just discussed before, but people should go to the LaRouche PAC website. We have a new emergency resolution that everyone should be organizing around. This is the emergency resolution for Glass-Steagall, a national bank and credit system, and to build the North American Water and Power Lines. Now, what we're looking at is if people really want to send a clear message to the White House, if they want to make the point that we as Americans will join in the forces across the nation to put an end to this austerity, to put an end to this British Empire and their minions on both sides of the aisle, in the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, then send that clear message by by backing our national slate of candidates, by backing these policies. And
I call you. We should change your party from just the LaRouche party. It should be called the LaRouche Infrastructure Party, or the LaRouche Credit to Rebuild the Future Party. Or organization. It's not even a party. It's basically a vision. What Lyndon has given is a vision, as it says in the Bible, my people perish for lack of a vision. If it's the same with your body. People say, well, I have good health care insurance. I said, are you crazy? I said, if you don't exercise and diet properly and eat properly and take nutraceuticals, and we have the best, by the way, at Nutrimedical.com, and we want to make sure we know that the people out there, this is how we put our show on. We sell the very best nutraceuticals for protection against Fukushima, to rebuilding your body if you've got osteoporosis, to preventing heart disease, and so on. Infrastructure in your body is taking nutraceuticals, diet, and exercise, and doing the things to stay well. If you didn't put the money into the infrastructure of your body, it wouldn't matter how much makeup you do or how many fine clothes you wear, you're going to die. And all the politicians want to put makeup on and wear fancy clothes, but they don't want to fix the infrastructure of the body, politic of America, which is to rebuild the water systems, to rebuild the structure that can allow credit so small industry becomes big industry, and infrastructure allows water, which is a limiting factor for growth in the Southwest United States, for farming, and for the population.
That's right.
I found out how much power do you think they use just to bring the power of the water over the Tehachapi Mountains into California? It's over 20% of the power generated in the entire state, including power we buy from nuclear plants in Arizona and Nevada. And when you add the sewage treatment, it's 38% of the power, plus they lose more in the transmission lines going a long distance. So you add it all together.
That's the policy that we need. That's why people should go to my website. People should go to the LaRouche PAC website. I'm Kesha for Congress I'm Kesha for Congress.com. KESHA for Congress.com. You should call into the office. Everything that people can do to back up our national slate. Here in Texas, I have a primary coming up in less than 3 weeks on May 29th. You should call into the office. If you have friends in Texas 22nd District or anywhere in the Houston area, they can come and they can help me out. The number is 877-927-2907.
Can you repeat that again? 877?
Yeah, 877-922-2907.
2907. Now, again, it's Kesha for Congress. That's KESHA for Congress.com. Kesha for Congress.
Right.
Now,
you want to send a clear message to Obama. Tell your friends to go and vote in the Texas 22nd District Democratic primary for me and for the candidacy that has the guts to stand up to this president and the minions of the British Empire and Wall Street who are continuing to defend Wall Street against the interests of the nation. That's what we're faced with right now.
Right. In fact, you're the kind of leader we need to run as not only a congresswoman, but we need to have your kind of leadership in the Senate and in the presidency. And if you were running for president, I'd vote for you today, because we need to have young, bright people that can have a vision for the future and want to reject the past and old ideas that only cause the king rats to run over the rest of us and to destroy the future and to destroy hope. And this is the year I think that the globalists want to destroy hope. So again, it's Kesha for Congress, 22nd District in Houston. That number again to call is 877-922-2907. And in the closing 5 minutes, what are the key issues you want to talk about in regards to these other major topics we talked about today?
Well, I'll tell you right now, what we're seeing, I'll just give you a sense of what we're seeing in the population. The population is ready for leadership. They are clinging to our solutions, the solutions that they know we got to shut down these Wall Street bailouts. I was just getting a report on the primary that happened yesterday where you're seeing a candidate that was running on the Democratic ballot against Obama in West Virginia got 40% of the vote. This goes to show you people are fed up with both sides of the aisle, with both of these parties. Right now, what you have coming out of the Democratic Party here in Texas against me, remember when I won the nomination in 2010, calling for Obama's impeachment, there was a massive upset across the board to the Democratic Party, and they ran a campaign to oust me from the party. Now you're having attacks coming from every single direction. Why? Because these guys are scared. They know that, again, we can defeat these guys. We can defeat this Democratic Party who's being slaves and puppeteers to Obama and his British puppet masters. This is what the American people can stand up and fight against now, and we're seeing that already happening. We're seeing the results of that standing up to these austerity parties, these bailout parties in Europe. The people are saying no more. We have to say that in the United States now, and we have to show the party, the Democratic Party, and others who are continuing to capitulate to this financial interest that is out to destroy and kill billions of people across the planet, that we will not allow this to happen. And so I think in these next, what we're going to show, not just in these next 3 weeks, that there's going to be an uprising in the population, but more so, let's go back to what you said before, at the beginning of the campaign, at the beginning of the discussion, that the threat that we're now faced with is the threat against of the elimination of billions of people on the planet. That threat is coming from the fact that Obama's committed to carrying out the policies of the British Empire toward thermonuclear war. The Russians know this. The only thing that stood in the way of that is the fight of our campaigns of the LaRouche movement and a few sane patriotic leaders in the military, like General Dempsey, who has put a halt to any types of preemptive strikes or strikes already having come from Israel. Or what we're seeing right now in Russia is that they've made it clear they are ready to defend their national sovereignty, and any continuous policies coming from Obama or NATO or others to put these ballistic missile systems at the border of their territory, we can see an explosion. We can see... Well,
any nation that permits these, too, is just asking to get whacked. Whether you put it in Tbilisi, Georgia, or where you put it in a city like Kiev in Ukraine or anywhere, you put these forward-looking anti-missile systems, and Russia has already publicly stated they're going to whack them with nukes, which means the entire city will be vaporized by the Russians in a preemptive strike to wipe them out first, before they send intercontinental missiles from short-range missile silos sitting inside giant submarines with 5 times the throw weight than our submarines. So one Russian submarine on the east and west coast could wipe out every city over 100,000 people. And we're idiots enough to think that the Third World War is doable or winnable. It's not.
Yeah, we're organizing all across the nation, all across the planet for the alternative. And the question now is, are the American people going to recognize their interest as human beings, as creative contributors to this nation, to this planet? Are we going to stop this threat of mass extinction and actually protect and defend the rights of mankind once again? So that's where we're at. And people...
We need to get you back every week, Kesha, before your election. You need to be the Congresswoman from Democratic District 22 in Houston, and, of course, get our science program back on track, our scientific innovation, and make it a public policy that all science needs to be public, and the NASA project in space does not go black off. As Eisenhower stated, the military-industrial intelligence complex should not rule by bifurcating civilization to the tune of the globalist bankers and corporate wants to have literally a superculture that has all the advanced technology, and we have nothing.
That's
amazing.
Right. So get to that website and back me up.
KeshaForCongress.com, 877-922-2907. Call now.